like we just can't dive. Oh, we're live. Okay.
We can dive.
Media. Oh, see, that worked. All right. Here we are going to go.
Yes, hi. I'd like to place an order for download. Can I have the Daily Tech News Show dinner special without the ads, not even on the side? And can I get that downloaded every weekday, please? Great. I'll be supporting with patreon.com/acedetect. Thank you.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, October 22nd, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today on a Thursday, as God intended, Mr. Justin Robert Young, DTNS contributor. How are you?
Tech news going up on a Thursday. We are having a great time here in Portland, Oregon.
Is the spirit of the 1890s still alive?
It never died, Tom.
Thank goodness.
Died.
Thank goodness. What is that? Hamilton? No, wait, not Hamilton. Which president was dealing with the surplus that the U.S. was fighting in the 18? Never mind.
Write your emails now, kid.
Hamilton was a Federalist. He was in the 1700s. And a great musical as well. Let's get up to the headlines. Instagram has a new standalone app called Boomerang that captures a 1-second burst of 5 photos that it then stitches together as a 4-second video saved to the camera roll. The video will play all 5 shots forward, then backward, and then loop a few times. Hence the name Boomerang, because it keeps coming back. You don't need to log in. You can shoot with a phone's front or back-facing camera. Videos can be shared anywhere because it saves it to your camera roll, though it's easiest to move them to Instagram and Facebook because they've got buttons for that right there in the app. Boomerang is available for iOS and Android right now.
Big question is, where do we want these kinds of functionality? Apple's built some of it with the photo burst into the camera itself. We haven't really seen a lot of hyperlapse adoption, or at least I haven't anecdotally in my stream. Twitter has obviously had more success with like the Vine standalone application. I don't necessarily think that this is something that will take really light on fire, but I just don't know where. These all seem like applications that don't have the right home yet.
I have been told by the children of the world that Instagram is very popular, and so I think any little widget that Instagram wants to throw out there for free like this probably isn't a bad idea. GIF-like things, GIF-like things. I was able to make that animated image of my dog looking like he was doing the 2-step today, which I never would have wanted to do otherwise.
Well, hopefully it suffers or it enjoys the same success as the Eddie Murphy movie for which it was named. Facebook has updated its search to show U.S. English language users anything from its 2 trillion posts, including public posts by all people and pages, not just ones you friended or linked. The results will be personalized and broken up into trusted news, people in your network, most popular links, or quotes and things from strangers.
Yeah, so that trusted news thing is what they're after here. They're trying to widen their search, make people spend more time in Facebook, and particularly combat the perception that Twitter is the place you go to learn news, not Facebook.
It is so funny as they both reach out to each other and try to become each other's services slowly by slowly, feature by feature, from Twitter moments on one end of the spectrum to this trusted news feature, which you got to figure Facebook has more of an ability to maybe bring to liven up its time stream, which also they want more and more for you to not just think is the breeding ground for all of your mom's friends who want to let you know about the Benghazi hearing.
Yeah, I think I might not be too far off the mainstream here, even though I often am, especially with social networks. I get news from Twitter by reading Twitter and then seeing news, right? It's not the other way around. I don't say, I need to catch up on the news. Let me pick up Twitter. And there may be some people who do that, but I don't think the vast majority of them do. So that's the problem I have here is Facebook saying, let's get you to search something in order to get the news. And we put news up at the top. It just doesn't seem natural to me.
Now, why wouldn't this be better as a standalone app? like Facebook breaking news, wherein you already authorize it. It maybe is based as a very message heavy kind of application that will always reroute you back into the app. But that seems to me like something that you can maybe break out a little bit more.
Well, and that is an element of Paper, which I think people may have forgotten about, but that's a Facebook app that sort of gives you...
No, Tom, Paper is the new Dropbox.
No, you're thinking of the illustration tool from 535. I'm talking about, actually, I don't know if 535 is the right publisher, but yeah, there are a million things named Paper. But no, Paper has an element of that, like get the news side of Facebook. And I wonder if this will help improve that. Although I also don't know if Facebook is focusing on encouraging people to use that Paper app anymore.
No, doesn't look like it.
TechCrunch reports German financial tech startup Number 26 is partnering with cash payment network probably Bart Solon to allow people to withdraw and deposit cash at cash registers in 3,000 grocery stores, drugstores, and other retail outlets in Germany. You just show up at the register, you enter the amount of cash in the app, scan a barcode, enter a PIN, boom. If you're making a deposit, that deposit should show up in your account immediately. 50,000 people in Germany and Austria have signed up for a Number 26 account, so there's a few people probably going to try this out.
Paul Thurrott posted that a trusted source says Microsoft Windows 10 fall update code named Threshold 2 will release in November. The updates will include UI fixes, an improved media creation tool, new features for Cortana, and updates to the Edge browser, although browser add-ons won't ship until 2016. The update will not require reactivation upon installation, and upgrades from Windows 7 or above can upgrade directly to the fall update.
This is the first service pack-like update. I don't know if it's exactly equivalent to that, whether it's quite that big, but this is the first big update since Windows 10 launched. And I do personally find it encouraging that they're saying, look, if you haven't upgraded to Windows 10 yet, once this update pushes, you'll just update to it like you would a service pack. It's essential to see how they handle this sort of thing as they evolve into software as a service, where you don't buy Windows anymore, you just use it.
It's very interesting and seems a little user friendly. You know, this I swear, you know, you just drop in. If this really were the day as we now recover from the hangover of Back to the Future day, to drop in and see this version of Microsoft for somebody who just followed the company in the late 90s is just a different world.
Yeah, especially all the Linux. Like, we don't think it's particularly impressive. Like, oh, yeah, okay, so they're using the Linux on Azure and here and there. The idea of Microsoft being associated with Linux in any way would have just blown people away in that late 90s era. CNBC reports Huawei's phone shipments jumped 81%, becoming the #1 phone shipper in China, knocking Xiaomi down to #2. Canalys, which estimates the shipping numbers, said it's going to bounce back. Smartphone shipments overall in China fell 2.7%, especially among phones priced less than $200, and that's where Xiaomi operates. Meanwhile, phones priced between $200 and $500 rose 22%, and that's the market Huawei has been moving into. It's also probably good news for Apple.
One more Matt submitted the TechCrunch report that YouTube confirmed any creator who earns ad revenue but does not agree to the terms of the new YouTube Red subscription platform will have their videos hidden from public view. If you're like, hey, Justin, that sounds familiar. Yeah, we did report this yesterday. Also, we reported it in April. And when YouTube Music Key launched, they did the exact same thing. But some people are still pretty mad. Also, Tom's wife works for YouTube.
So you definitely do not have to take anything I have to say on this matter to heart, especially because Eileen worked on the announcement yesterday. But I feel like this is the kind of thing where I don't know what else YouTube could have done. If they want to provide a commercial-free service, allowing some creators to still have commercials even if you're paying wouldn't work. And so the thing that they should do, which they haven't from what I've been able to tell, is say, well, you know what, if you're monetizing on the platform and you don't like these new terms where you have to take subscription revenue as well as advertising revenue, then just you can turn off your monetization. It seems like it's kind of like you're trapped You either accept the new terms or your videos all go non-public, which that's kind of crappy. So there should be a way to back out of it and say, you know what, I want to keep my channel, I want to keep it public. I just don't like these terms anymore, so I'm going to undo monetization. And that's what I think YouTube should offer. A lot of people are worried that they're not going to make as much money off the subscription service. My thoughts on that are, if YouTube didn't think it was going to make as much money off the subscriptions as it's making off advertising, they wouldn't be making this gamble, I don't think, especially when advertising is the bread and butter of Google.
Yes, that I don't know whether or not that is something that should, calm the troubled mind of a YouTube creator who has that worry, because road to hell, best laid plans, and all that. That being said, what I am curious about is whether or not this move would have been made in this way, for which I mean announcement first, dealing with the fallout and consequences afterward, and not a email to all creators saying, like, maybe soft pedaling this or offering some kind of sweetener or something. If products like Vessel had possibly done better and gotten wider adoption. It doesn't seem anecdotally like Vessel is taken off the world. We haven't really heard them crow about earnings in the last few months. So it's interesting that now that YouTube has kind of seen the landscape of non-YouTube revenue opportunities for creators become a little bit mature, and yet they are still indispensable, you have to wonder, well, now where are you going to go? If you're another creator, you kind of have to agree to this.
Well, and also disagree. Just a fact that sheds light on what you're saying. YouTube sent the agreement to creators in April. So there's been time for there to be a movement or anger to really turn out. And it turns out 99% of the creators just signed it. Maybe grumbling, but most of them signed it. So, and that may be because of what you're talking about. I'm just saying, like, it's not like they popped it on the creators yesterday.
No. And also, you're never going to get a populace-wide agreement on something like this on a platform as diverse as YouTube. Everybody from the lady who plays with Disney toys and only shows her hands to PewDiePie to somebody who started yesterday to OMG Chad. Everybody has to agree on the same thing, and that's never going to happen.
Yeah. Two studies from the University of Utah in partnership with the American Automobile Association found it takes up to 27 seconds for a driver to regain full concentration on driving after giving a voice command. Some systems are a little better, but it still takes at least 9 seconds. Study was conducted using 10 cars released this year, covering Siri, Google Now, and Cortana voice activation systems. The in-vehicle information system study included 257 people, and the smartphone personal assistant study had 65 participants. Participants drove a car at 25 miles per hour on a 2.7-mile route in Salt Lake City's Avenues neighborhood. Which makes me wonder what the people of the Avenues neighborhood thought, but okay.
Yeah, they thought, everybody steer clear. Make sure that you just order pizza and don't go pick it up.
Yeah.
These stories always make me wonder. Yes, that is a quantifiable set of time for which is troubling to look at data-wise. But I can't help but wonder whether or not, if we have been doing these studies for years, if we would be saying, oh my God, we're down to only 9 seconds of distraction to do things while people are in the car, because people have always focused on maps and everything else. Even if we get outside of the kind of villain of the day, like texting and smartphones and stuff like that.
We have been doing these studies for years, and I can't remember the exact second amount, but we covered one on Buzz Out Loud that said hands-free voice talking in a car reduced your reaction time about the same amount as alcohol, and it was less than 9 seconds in that case. So if in that, and I'd want to look at that study before I made too many assertions, but that would point to us getting worse at this.
So wait, all right. So this is voice activated.
This is us talking to the car saying, play Audible, or, skip the song, or, doing something.
My mom.
Yeah, exactly. The other study that I mentioned from years ago was people actually having a conversation on the phone. So they're not exactly, it's a little bit apples and oranges there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess I guess the thought is there a cost to doing more with your car, an internet-connected car, with your voice than just doing it with your hands?
Well, I think we are under the false impression that the distracting thing about using a phone, totally the old man when it comes to driving a car. When you're driving a car, I believe you should do one thing: drive the car. You can listen to the radio. You can have a chat with the person next to you. I think that's okay because the person next to you also sees everything around you and is more likely to shut up if somebody runs in front of you or even alert you to something. When you're talking on the phone, you're talking to somebody who has no awareness of what else is going on in the car, and it distracts you. And so far, studies have borne that out.
Also, get off Tom's lawn.
Exactly.
Skyboard 13 sent us the EW report that after 14 seasons, 2,950 experiments, Mythbusters, the legendary series, is coming to an end. Hosts Adam Savage and Jamie Heineman say they have planned out an awesome final run. Final season starts January 9th, 2016 on Discovery, and the Science Channel will air every previous episode of Mythbusters ever in a marathon beginning December 23rd.
All good things come to an end.
Well, and this is something that's been coming for a little bit.
I mean, 14 seasons.
Budget and letting go of staff and stuff for a few years now. They have done an admirable job of keeping this show on the air.
An admirable job.
Oh,
absolutely. Reuters reports that the European Court of Justice ruled Thursday that exchanges of digital currencies like Bitcoin for traditional currencies, so in other words, a Bitcoin for a euro, should be exempt from consumption tax. That means no VAT should be applied to conversion of Bitcoin into other currencies. Ruling came in response to Swedish tax authorities saying it should not be exempt. The European Court of Justice says no, it's exempt. In opposition to that, the U.S. IRS has previously ruled that Bitcoin should be treated as property for tax purposes, which is kind of a weird way of doing it because you can still 1099 it and you have to fill out a W-2. I guess if you got paid in houses, the same would be true as well. But in Europe, they're saying, nope, no taxes when you're moving Bitcoin around for money.
That's really interesting. I am really curious to see where we settle on stuff like this.
Yeah, and when I say the IRS says it should be treated like property, that's the IRS. We still don't have the Department of Treasury or the Supreme Court really coming down with a firm ruling on is Bitcoin or any other digital currency a currency or a commodity. IRS is treating it like a commodity for now.
Yeah, and that's the IRS just coming up with, I mean, the IRS needs rules because they have to process the taxes every single year. So they just need to come up with something. I would like to see cryptocurrencies enjoy a little bit more of a free reign, but at the same time, I can't imagine the headaches that are caused by something like that.
Yeah, and by the way, when I say the Department of Treasury hasn't ruled finally, I'm not saying they haven't ever ruled. They've actually been fairly friendly to Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners and such, and the IRS is part of the Department of Treasury. I just mean we haven't settled it. We haven't, the law is now set and we all know how to treat digital currency.
Well, and considering how stable and understood Bitcoin is in general, you can imagine taking a prudent hands-off approach might not be the worst thing in the world. The Interactive Advertising Bureau reports that in the first half of 2015, online ads generated $14.3 billion in revenue, up 22.5% year over year. Combining Q1 and Q2, revenue was $27.5 billion, up 19% growth year over year. This is the sixth consecutive year of double-digit first half year growth. Revenue growth continues to be driven by mobile, non-mobile video, and social advertising spending.
So, if you hear people in the advertising world bemoaning ad blockers, sure. Could this be better without ad blockers? Sure. Why not? But it's not like things are a disaster right now for digital advertising. But the big fear was ad blockers coming to mobile on iOS. Here's your benchmark. Here's what the advertising is now. In the very earliest days of ad blockers, where ad blockers on iOS haven't had any impact yet. So there, we've planted this flag. We'll check in another quarter or so.
Well, you have to worry about markets, though, and whether or not people are moving to online and mobile advertising and social media advertising fast enough before tools are developed to disrupt it. Look at music sales online, that by the time that the labels fully kind of got all in on music sales and negotiated deals that they liked with gigantic retailers like Apple, we were already well into the Pandora, Audio, Spotify, Apple Music sea change, where now those sales started being eroded, compared in a relatively very short window. After record sales and album sales and CD sales kind of fell apart. So for advertising, I think what they worry about with AdBlock is like, yeah, no, it's going well. We hope it continues to go well and continues to grow.
That's a perfectly reasonable way of putting it. It's not the way I always hear it put, though. Occasionally you will hear people saying, digital advertising is being destroyed. And it's not. That doesn't mean ad blocking isn't a significant concern, as Justin's saying.
Certainly. It's not the death knell. It's just something that they need to be concerned about.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of money, let's finish up with the revenue of $18.68 billion and adjusted earnings per share of $7.35 per share. That beat expectations of $18.53 billion and earnings per share of $7.21. This is Alphabet's first quarter as a company. Never been around to get before, but the company is almost identical to Google of a year ago, which reported $16.52 billion gross revenue and earnings per share of $6.35.
Oh, earnings. Pass the mic. My name is Justin. Amazon took all those grumpy analysts out back and beat the margins out of their expectations. Amazon reported $25.4 billion in net sales and earnings of 17 cents a share. Analysts had predicted a loss of 13 cents a share on sales of a paltry $24.91 billion. Ew. AWS was one of the bright spots, jumping 78% year over year. There's gold in them thar servers.
I think I saw one of the analysts late at night crying at his desk. And hot new startup Microsoft generated 67 cents a share of adjusted profit off non-GAAP revenue of $21.66 billion. That beat analyst expectations of 59 cents a share and $21.03 billion. The division that is largely made up of Microsoft Office was down 3% year over year, though Office itself added 3 million subs. Cloud was up 14%, pretty much carried the company. And the Windows and Gaming division, not surprisingly, down in this quarter, about 17%. Their big quarter will be coming up. There you go. 3 earnings, all beaten analyst expectations like they're the New York Mets.
And Daniel Murphy is cloud service processing.
Absolutely. And that, my friends, is the headlines. Hey, if you want to say, why didn't you cover this story? Do it at dailytechnewsshow.subreddit.com. That's where we go. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. That's where we go to look and see, like, okay, what other things are out there that maybe we missed? What are the things that people are interested in? Or a bunch of people voting something up. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. That's the headlines. There was an interesting story in The Guardian this morning about Arsenal, the football club in England. They call it soccer here in the United States. Starting to really double down on analytics and big data. Arsenal bought StatDNA, the US-based football data analytics company with a massive workforce in East Asia, for £2.165 million in December 2012. Now, the interesting thing is that StatDNA was formed in 2009, and their CEO, Jason Rosenfeld, is also the co-founder of Digital Divide Data. Digital Divide Data employs 500 disadvantaged people in their operating centers in Cambodia and Laos as part of a bridging the digital divide, employing people, getting them to work. Those folks act as StatDNA's operations partner. So it's data, but it's data being logged in many cases by viewers looking at a play and saying, well, was there follow through on that kick? What position were they in as they made the goal? Then that data is subject to the algorithms and the analytics. Arsenal kind of is real secretive about StatDNA, Justin. They only ever refer to it as AOH USA LLC. The AOH standing for Arsenal Overseas Holding.
Well, this is an interesting story on two levels. Interesting as a big data story and interesting as a sports story. The sports story has gotten no shortage of coverage. In fact, the coverage has been so large, we've had a movie nominated for an Academy Award with Moneyball in the idea of stats in baseball.
But the Moneyball, I mean, and I know it was more complex than this, but they implied like, ooh, we're putting numbers into spreadsheets now and looking at trends. We're talking about 500 people crunching videos, turning them into data, storing them on huge servers, running algorithms, looking for anything you can find about anything. I'm looking for one of these examples. They said, you want to know all passes by Lionel Messi that were unsuccessful? Boom, touch of a button.
Well, but this is all right. So baseball was the first to enjoy the numbers revolution because it is easy to identify where people are affecting the game.
Yeah, it's very discrete as far as numbers go. It's not a free-flowing game.
Exactly, because essentially baseball is a long series of one-on-one plays tied together as a team sport. What you've seen in basketball, football, and soccer is a far more sophisticated way to collect this data to understand, okay, in soccer, maybe it was the halfback who set up that pass that really led to that goal being scored, and it wasn't necessarily the striker who put his foot on the ball and kicked it into the net. In basketball, you have seen tremendous steps forward with the SportView cameras, which have been installed in all arenas throughout the league, that at all times have 6 cameras that capture every single movement on the court, and then you have people pour through it and say, okay, well, this was a successful pass from Gerald Green to Hassan Whiteside, and that demonstrates that Gerald Green has a higher than average success rate. And from there, you've seen entire teams turn over their personnel operations, like the Memphis Grizzlies did, to John Hollinger, a online columnist for ESPN who invented the PER stat, to basically say, hey, now you decide who's a good basketball player and who's a bad basketball player, and tell our coach who they should play and who they shouldn't, which has, again, and this is something that we don't really need to get into, but gets into the age-old, like, don't you be telling me about numbers. I know this sport. I've coached it for 20 years.
Well, yeah, I was talking to our producer, Jenny, before the show. She's like, it's basically witchcraft that has been practiced in sports. Like, I just look into his eyes and I know that he's ready to go for the game, versus big data analytics, which is essentially the same thing powering Google now to suggest a restaurant or a route home. Can say, hey, we have an even more limited pool of people to work with, so we can make really personalized recommendations because you can track every single thing these people do. It's not like they'll use another browser and we'll get gaps in their data. They're on the court. We're tracking them. Now, the leagues sometimes don't cooperate. The NFL won't let you put GPS trackers on players yet, but they're softening up on that. FIFA now allows monitoring in the game. Tennis's ITF allows sensor-equipped rackets. So there's a swim team that I read about that actually uses sleep trackers to find out like who's freshest for the races, for the swim meets the next day. You can get all the data you want out of these players and then crunch it and figure out, and you don't even have to look at the players anymore. You can say, oh, our gap is in speed and scoring from the corners, so find me players that are available and off contract that have speed and going for the corners. Let's go acquire them.
Now, the danger with stuff like this is that we are never going to be where we want to be data-wise. And, as any numbers person will tell you, many times bad data is worse than no data because it makes you build assumptions based on what you think to be scientifically accurate, of a scientifically accurate path forward, when really it is leading you down a primrose path to hell. And you have seen that in a lot of teams that have put together very good analytics-based teams and yet have not gelled in the way that you might hope them to make a good winning success.
Because I didn't look them in the eyes.
Well, I mean, and that of course reaffirms it's like, well, yeah, I could have told you that this person does this and this person does that. But what I'm curious, Tom, is what's next. Where do we take, if we now understand that, taking the crazy Number Geeks magazine column seriously, like Billy Bean did in Moneyball, then begets people inventing their own formulas and being hired as executives, as like John Hollinger and Bill James both have, and now it's teams trying to buy big data companies so they can exclusively have that information and keep it away from their competitors. Is the future the big data taking over not only personnel acquisition and personnel decision making, but in game decisions? If you see via a GPS tracker and the fact that Dwayne Wade didn't get a good night's sleep last night, that maybe he needs to come out earlier in the second quarter than he normally would, and maybe he needs to be rested for the next 2 games, even though he says he's ready to play and Eric Spoelstra would otherwise put him in. Do those in-game decisions start to be affected by our ability to collect this kind of data?
Yeah, coach says the pitcher's tired. Coach Bot says the pitcher has 12 more pitches left. Which coach do you go with? Is it the pitching coach who's been doing this all his life, or the coach bot, who is statistically accurate most of the time? And I think you hit on the biggest problem with this earlier, which is you're still dealing with a limited pool of information. One of the reasons Google Now can be better is because it has all of the users of Google using it. If you're just looking at the players in the NBA, or you're just looking at the players in the English Premier League, and you're just trying to apply that to your players and your players this season, the statistical ability to predict becomes harder and harder. Dallas Mavericks coach Rick Carlisle, which, by the way, the Mavericks owned by Mark Cuban, big proponent of tech, obviously, and big data, said before last year, we're going to be a better team this year. We know that by the analytics. He was right. The Dallas Mavericks went from 8th place to 7th place and went from a record of 49-33 to a record of 50-32.
Well, and that was last year, right?
Yeah, so he said we'll be a better team this year, and they were a better team by 1 win.
Well, and this is a very interesting case, because the Dallas Mavericks were a fantastic team through the first half of the year. And then, based on what they believed numbers-wise, they thought they could make a championship acquisition by bringing in Rajon Rondo from the Boston Celtics. This was disastrous for them. It completely broke up their fast break offense. It sunk their season, and Rajon Rondo was effectively cut from the team unofficially before they were even eliminated from the playoffs, making it a gigantic trade failure for them. So this was an example of where they thought the data was leading them in a good way, in a good position, and yet it wound up sabotaging their season.
And the big question, and I'm not saying I have an answer, but the big question is, do they just need more data? Do they just need to refine the algorithms, which could be a perfectly reasonable thing to say, like, well, we thought that would work. We were wrong. We're refining the algorithms. Now that we have more data, we can see a projection that would have told us that this was the wrong move. Or is it the kind of thing where, you can have all the data in the world and you just can't always accurately predict you? There are just so many intangibles, as they say in sports, that you just can't get the confidence rating out of there. Some of it just has to be done by instinct.
Well, beyond any of the intangibles on whether or not somebody is a great three-point shooter, but they also are a malcontent behind the scenes, or they don't get a good night's sleep because they party too much, at the end of the day, all sports is they're RNG machines. And you can have projections and you can guess, but they are always going to be probabilities, and you never know where that dice is going to land.
Well, and this I'm going to stray avowedly into sports territory a little bit here. Folks who don't like sports, I apologize. We've been trying to keep it about data and how it applies to human beings. But one thing about sports that I have noticed is that it used to be you would try to figure out how to play enough games to determine who was the best team, right? And in those days, you had a league of teams. You played 154 games, and the team with the best record was considered the best team. And that seemed fairly statistically accurate. Like, okay, yeah, if they were able over that amount of time to consistently win, they must be the best team. That's not what the playoffs are about now in sports. The playoffs now are about creating a story. If you wanted to determine who was the best team in NFL football, you wouldn't have one game eliminates you in the playoffs, right? You want to create drama for sports. It's like you say, it's RNG and the need to create a story.
Well, and let's be fair, as I'm sure our European listeners are raging, against their iPods and iPhones and Androids, that this is an American sports issue. The English Premier League awards their championship to the team that wins the regular season, as we have in America. The playoff fascination is a fairly uniquely American obsession.
Well, I don't know about that. World Cup still has that. I mean, you have pool play as a nod, but pool play
but that is a special
robin
tournament in the way that the UEFA Champions League is a.
In other words, it's a tournament to decide the best team in the world. That goes for the drama, frankly.
Well,
but now we're getting into otherwise you wouldn't make any money, and you wouldn't be able to afford all of these big data companies that you have to hire to be able to win.
Yeah, and if you're FIFA, you wouldn't be able to get countries to bribe you at the dollar amount that they're normally used to because it wouldn't be as special.
There's that, too. Okay, our pick of the day, Jeff here from No Longer Sweltering Dallas sent us a science pick for the show. He writes, PBS Digital Studios distributes through YouTube an excellent show called PBS Space Time, produced by Comhaber Brown. Each 10 to 15-minute episode explores fascinating topics on astrophysics and quantum mechanics, ranging from the whimsical, such as calculating the acceleration due to gravity in Super Mario World, to the truly detailed and dense, such as the true meaning of the curvature of space-time and what really happens inside a black hole. Now, Jeff says the host keeps the math out of it, explaining everything in lay people's terms, and new episodes are released weekly. All episodes can be viewed for free on YouTube. Just search for the channel PBS Space-Time. It's like if you wanted something even more in-depth than Cosmos and you want it all the time, sounds like that's what you want to look for, PBS Spacetime.
Such amazing stuff being created. It just never ceases to amaze me how much awesome, amazing, polished, top-tier work floats out there for free these days.
Send your picks to us, feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Jason from Seattle, actually Redmond, says, I'm frankly surprised. Actually, he says, I'm frankly quite surprised, which might be overputting it, Jason. I'm frankly quite surprised Patrick Beja wasn't all over the difference between megabytes and megabytes, since it derives directly from actions taken by the fine folks who protect Système International, a.k.a. the metric system, also known as the French.
The French.
Patrick, if he were here, would probably say, not all French. But he in his email, which I will keep in full in our show notes, Jason explains the difference between a power of 10 and a power of 2. 1 megabyte, according to SI, is 1 million bytes. According to memory manufacturers, it's 1,048,576 bytes. Hence the confusion, hence the determination. Thus, the invention of KI, MI, GI, and TI, which have the computer-useful definitions based on powers of 2, so that when you say a megabyte, it means 1,048,576 bytes. So there you go. Thank you, Jason. It's all the French, if you wonder why we have megabytes. Do you think Jason was meaning to embarrass Patrick by that?
I think that some people get really, really, really excited about numbers.
Yeah. Well, that goes right back to our sports story and all the analytics. Bill James, Billy Bean, now Arsenal.
Yeah, they're gunning for statistical accuracy.
I've always supported Newcastle in the English Premier League for no other reason than I enjoy their beer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of switching support.
I've actually always liked Arsenal.
Really?
A bunch of friends went and did a semester abroad in London that I visited them for, and they all became Arsenal fans randomly. And so I've always kind of had a soft spot in my heart for Arsenal. It's just a matter of waking up to watch those games, man.
Yeah.
Kind of brutal on the West Coast.
You can do some Saturday morning stuff depending on when they are, though, and it's a nice little
I guess
have your coffee.
It's a night game. I don't know. It's just it's hard to get into. But the one thing that soccer has, the English Premier League has, and this will be the last sports point I'll make, I swear, people, is that it is always going to be 2 hours. It won't be longer. It's not going to randomly last 5 hours like a playoff baseball game. It's not going to randomly be at 3.5 hours like a football game. It will always be 2 hours no matter what, and that is really rad about soccer.
Yeah, it's the greatest innovation in worldwide sports.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, if you liked the sound of Justin and I talking about sports, but you didn't necessarily like to have any sports content in it, instead, like maybe take out the sports content and substitute science fiction and fantasy content, head on over to fsltonight.com, where Justin, Robert, Young, and I host a made-up show about sports being played by people from Mordor and Alderaan and places like that.
It's one of the true joys in my life to do FSL Tonight with Tom, if even just because it is for both of us the 97,000th project that we have to do in any given week, and we both kind of come into it with like, oh man, we got to do FSL, and then just end it laughing and falling off our chairs because it is such a joy to do.
We have a good time doing it. Maybe you'll enjoy it too. FSLtonight.com. Follow Justin on Twitter, twitter.com/JustinRYoung. You still got orders for the Contender out there?
Oh yeah, man. Pre-orders are still incoming. Please go ahead and check it out. thecontender.us. We are getting proofs on all the production quality for the boxes themselves, and then shortly, very, very soon, within the next few weeks, they will start rolling off the presses in Dallas, Texas, and heading out to everybody who backed the Kickstarter and anybody who pre-orders it. So I would say get in your order now, especially if you want to get this as a gift to somebody. If you have somebody that loves politics, you don't need to know anything about politics to enjoy it, but it certainly doesn't hurt if you do. Check it out, thecontender.us.
Thank you, folks, for making this show possible. The partners, the bosses, the co-executive producers, all of you guys are the best. Thank you for being willing to support Daily Tech News Show. If you are not one of them, but you'd be willing to support us, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support, or just tell a friend. Do whatever you can if you enjoy the show and you want to get some value out of it, to give you some value back. In fact, there was a guy who wrote in a really nice email to me today saying, when you put it as value for value, I realized that I get as much value out of Daily Tech News Show as I get out of Spotify. So I started paying as much for Daily Tech News Show as I do for Spotify, which is incredibly generous. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I'll tell you, and to back that up, I'm going to sing Hotline Bling after the show, just so you can get that Spotify experience.
Excellent. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 512-593-2459. Listen to the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com, and visit our website at dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll be back tomorrow with Shannon Morse and Len Peralta. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
You used to call me on my cell phone.
Promise delivered.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to make this one better than Spotify right now. Because the player's gonna play. Now we have what Spotify doesn't.
Exactly.
Aha. Well.
I mean, if by that you mean a pale imitation of Queen.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you recorded that, I bet you could put it on Spotify. They still don't have it. Ellie's crying. She's like, just shut up, Tom.
Not a fan of Taylor Swift or Drake.
Oh, that was me. I'm sorry.
Would you like some title suggestions?
Yeah, please.
All right. So we have Arsenal pitches data.
Works in so many directions. Nicely done,
YouTube has some creators seeing red.
Mm-hmm.
I like drunk on assistance.
Wait, what does that mean? Drunk on assistance?
Isn't that personal assistant, like virtual assistants?
Oh, because when you're drunk, I got it. Okay.
Yeah, you were saying that it was the same as being drunk.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of 2, 4, 6, 8. Data sets are really great.
I'll get the data nerds on our side. Ellie likes
Ellie likes that one too. Go, fight, analyze.
Aw, you will be mythed.
Aww.
That's funny.
14 seasons. You can catch them in reruns.
That's pretty amazing. No taxation without commoditization. This is nice. Witch stats.
'Cause it's witch stats.
Track
Just
ball.
crazy witch stats. Yeah, more Spotify for you.
Yeah.
We've got data. Yes, we do. We've got data. How about you?
Megabyte ball. Mebaball.
Money sucker.
Mebaball.
I mean, the
It's
funny thing is
Mebaball.
that like, they're what I think, and maybe I almost wish that that we could have gotten a little bit more into this, but I think the real fascinating thing about that Arsenal story is that it was them keeping data of like proprietary data. That now
I started to take us that direction, and then we got distracted. But that is really, really interesting.
Is that like it's not just like that now. If we live in a world where the Memphis Grizzlies said, no, John Hollinger, you are now our player personnel guy. You no longer write for ESPN because we really like your application of the per stat. Would the next move be, hey, we're scouring blogs to find the one kid, or we're buying these companies who have these.
That's how they got Bill James. That's how the Red Sox got Bill James.
But that's the thing, is like, now would the move be, let's not wait to see whether or not they become good columnists, or they become people that are personalities that people want to follow. Let's just hire them immediately and make their knowledge proprietary, because this is still a closed league competition.
If data in sports gets even more popular, it'll make LL Cool J change his name to LL Bill J.
Oh, stop it. Jeez.
That was so many turns.
I know.
I was actually thinking that it's interesting, and like this is sort of more like hacking side, but what's the next step? Like there was already that report that there was one baseball team that somehow socially engineered a hack on another baseball team recently.
That baseball team was the St. Louis Cardinals hacking the Houston Astros.
Yeah, because they are.
Let's not try to pretend like Tom's trying to cover it up because he's a Cardinals fan.
A disgusting act that needs to be punished to the fullest extent of the commissioner's office.
And those people were fired already, too.
Right. And the question is, like, what the next level of integration of sort of computer awareness will there be in major American sports teams?
Well, I mean, I think that there is going to be a slow creep of just, as people in general get more computer aware, that's just going to follow. What's interesting now is how far regular technology and proprietary sports technology will kind of diverge. That it's not just, you got sites like Football Outsiders, which just watches old tape and categorizes literally every move by the offensive guard, offensive lineman by offensive lineman, and derive stats from it.
And yet still, Bill Belichick was able to come up with a new play that involved the guy leaping over other guys and blocking.
No, that's okay. I was just having a thought about the fact that you do have all of these fan-run enterprises that look at all of this stuff, and people just as passionate about doing that because they enjoy it as people who do amateur astronomy. And the idea that you could have an open source data set for sports becomes really interesting when you look at like the idea of what is actually proprietary for a league. If I'm watching the game that is an authorized broadcast and I'm logging those stats, can the league come in and say, hey, wait a minute, that's an unauthorized use of that viewing. You can't create valuable stats out of that. Only our authorized partners could do that.
Well, if anyone was going to try that, it would definitely be Major League Baseball.
Well, no,
I'd say NFL is even worse, but
no. Didn't baseball try to?
They tried to crack down on fantasy sports.
Exactly.
And what the court said was the events of the game are not proprietary, and so you can't copyright the facts. Copyright doesn't apply to facts, but you can restrict the use of images and stuff like that. But the names of the people and what they did, you can't restrict.
Yeah, but that was
probably a precedent, but.
Yeah, no, I think the idea of people creating stats based on it, I think the leagues look at now as this is more publicity, more attention toward the league. Even if.
But what if the teams are like, wait a minute, we just spent £2 million buying a data analytics company, and we could have got data set. I mean, I guess it's the interpretation of the data that you're paying for, not just the collection of it. But this company, one of its values is that they have 500 people collecting the data. There may be a cheaper way for that company to do it, I guess.
Oh no, absolutely. And I think that there's a world in which you could just get paid X amount of money, pennies on the dollar, if you just kept every time you hit refresh and saw some play and said, did that guy kick the ball? Yes or no? Who kicked the ball? Did it go there? Yada yada yada. And you could create a lot of very, very valuable data.
Sports sourcing.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I had a point. And I forgot.
Open sports. Linemanix.
Sports.
Did you say linemanix?
Yep,
Nice.
I did.
Oh, no.
I did. I've been with you guys for almost 2 years, and the pun is starting to pour into my brain.
It's working.
Yes! All right, guys. I got to get back to my Portland existence.
All right. Go tell Mayor Kyle McLaughlin hello for me.
I will.
Powell's.
I'll go to Powell's. I'll go to Voodoo Donut and get a Voodoo Donut.
Blue Star Donut's better.
You want to know why? Because Voodoo Donuts, as delightful as they are, and I love them, and everybody who goes to Portland, if you've never been to Voodoo Donuts, you should go to Voodoo Donuts. You can eat a quarter of one. They're all full cakes. You get oh no, I'm going to get a dozen donuts.
No, I know.
That is enough for a 12 years worth of donuts. They are so gigantic.
Voodoo.
Any poop. I will see you guys.
All right. Have fun.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. The Blue Star Donuts in Abbott Kinney opened up yesterday.
Ooh.
Or I opened up.
Why are we going there?
I opened up like 2 or 3 days ago. Eileen went there at 4 o'clock, and they were out of donuts.
Sure.
Like 4 p.m. or 4 in the morning?
4 p.m.
Okay.
They're open till 10 p.m. every night. And they were still open, and they were apologizing. They're like, we're going to get better at estimating the demand.
Is it the first store ever, kind of their operation?
First store in L.A., I think.
I've only been to one all-night donut store, and that's just Bob's Donuts over there on Polk.
I can't remember the name of the place I used to go to in Austin that was open all night.
I just remember it because it was the focal point of kind of the pimp wars of the mid to late 90s in San Francisco. There were a couple of drive-bys, and one of the pimps was shot in the doorway with his donut and coffee.
Tom, the next time I come to this side of town, we're going to Blue Star Donuts.
Okay. I mean, it's not too late to adjust, I guess. It's not that far.
Well, it might be a little late to adjust.
I don't know. As I get older, I love donuts, but the thing is, I love the thought of donuts more than I like eating them. I don't know if that's true.
You have to be really careful about when you eat a
donut. No. I love the thought of donuts, and I love eating them. It's how I feel after, I think. That's the problematic thing.
I don't know what it is, but as soon as I bite it, it's like, I kind of regret eating a donut.
It's when they're too oily that I get a little I have to be careful about which donuts I eat now.
We got a bunch of donuts recently. I'm trying to remember the store, and it was one of the few places that I've eaten donuts at that I did not feel. Oh no, it was in Modesto. It was this really odd place, but like we got a dozen.
Well, there's your problem.
Yeah.
It was a dozen donuts, and it's Modesto. It's sort of it's a kind of a culinary wasteland.
Yeah, it's your homeland, though.
I'm not going to say mean things about Modesto because I know people live there, and I think that a lot of them listen to this show.
Well, Roger's from there. His family lives there.
All right, so Roger has the permission to say anything about
I
Modesto.
can say crap about a place I grew up in.
I will say that every time I went to Modesto for CBS News, it was definitely for a murder.
So
not
the
good.
thing about Modesto is the weirdest thing. I think I've told you this. I've had 3 shady things happen in my life. One is Gary Condit.
Mm-hmm.
He was our congressman, and I don't remember Chandra Levy because that whole thing was in D.C. or whatever. But I do remember meeting Condit, and then my mechanic at the time worked on the guy who bumped off those 3 women in Yosemite. He worked on his car, and the FBI had to talk to him. And then who was the other person? Oh, Lacey Peterson. She was a junior when I was.
That's all the times that I went up there. Although I didn't go up for too late for Condit. Someone else did that. But yeah, just when it goes bad, it goes bad in Modesto.
It's a very odd confluence of shady stuff that happens.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of shady stuff, we're going to stop right now.
What title did we pick?
Oh, it's already up on the site.
Let me go look.
And I don't remember what I picked. Oh, Arsenal pitches data.
Okay, that's the right one.
Sorry, I forgot to say that. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Adios.